my forgiveness, Mr. Matt Little, okay? I understood that the 5% was a pipe dream, okay? My point is that if we don't find a way to get that, and we continue to sit at meetings and say, we will not cut staff, we will not change services, and we don't look at any other options, we're going to be in trouble when you don't have enough money to pay it. We're fortunate. We have $6 million almost in that liquor fund as a slush fund to help us out on mechanical items. We have about $8 million in a reserve fund. We have brilliant people working here. But if we don't look deeper to find these cuts, then we are not doing our job. And I really admire your young youth and exposition of all these things you're trying to do. I don't understand the position you have, but it isn't the way we've done things before. We have been able to come to those resolutions before. And we could have done, as when you were here, $400,000 in the parks. We had the money then as much as we do now. We have ways to cut the cost.
Mayor Bells, just a quick.
Citizens' comments, we will. Is there anyone else who would like to address the council?
Mayor Bells, could I just say something?
Matt,
I know it's not a debate.
We both have passionate views about the budget, and I'm going to hold my comments back. We're listening to the citizens tonight, Matt.
Certainly, and I would invite the gentleman to help us decide on what to cut. Thank you.
Someone else like to address the council? I think this is a sign of health, understanding that we are open to hearing from our residents. Seeing no one else?
Good evening. I'm Bob Erickson. I live at 18224 Justice Way in Lakeville. Been a resident of Lakeville for 22 years. My wife called to my attention an article in the This Week Life and Times this weekend about a council member making a proposal to donate a portion of his salary. She asked me about that. Historically, there's only been one council member in the last 22 years that has stepped forward and made such an offering. It's commendable. The last time that was done, the council member made the donation and the city's paid for the expense of that donation for the last 12 years. So it was commendable on that council member's part to make the donation, but then the city endured and accepted the responsibility for making the payment on that since the date it was installed. It seems to me that if a council member or a county commissioner or school board member wants to step forward and make a donation, the best way to do that would be anonymously. And the reason I say that is anonymously, that was well intended, but we're not using the airwaves to send a signal relating to an individual member of the city council, but rather a person who wants to make a donation anonymously could go for a one-time expense, but wouldn't become something that gets politicized, if you will. I want to move on to the Senior Citizen Center in the Lakeville Police Department. There's only one council member, I believe, here today, Lori Reib, can recall that when the City Council was considering building a new public works facility, the City Council said to the administration that they wouldn't move forward with that until they sold the existing public works building. And I thought that was appropriate. It certainly presented a challenge to the staff, but in fact we did proceed and pursued a buyer for the public works building, and current city administrator ended up having responsibility for the closing on that building. But nevertheless, the City Council at that time was not willing to proceed with a new facility until they had sold the old facility. And to that point, if there's going to be a new senior citizen facility, and it might be the Lakeville Police Department, then I would think that some consideration should be given to proceeding with the sale of the existing building to make sure there's a buyer, and not kick the can down the road and end up in the situation that you're in right now with a building that is looking for a tenant. Liquor stores. I wrote an article because the chamber stepped forward and asked me if I would in relation to the value of our liquor stores contributing to the well-being, of the fiscal well-being of our community. Personally, I, and more importantly, the top liquor manager in the state, our chief financial officer, and the entire staff were successful in bringing our liquor stores from 10th place, as you know, in 1989 to first place. And the greatest moment for me was to surpass Richfield and Edina in that process. It gave me great pride to accomplish that and overcome my colleagues in those two communities at that time. It was exciting. It was competitive. And we remain in first place today. The most recent liquor store that we built certainly is an award-winning facility, but I really question the amount of money that was expended, not only to build the facility, but also the amount of money that was spent in the neighboring park to accommodate this use. I'm not saying it isn't a spectacular facility, but I am saying that if the city is going to proceed and build another liquor store, I hope that we would use the same approach that retailers would use in the commercial real estate business with regard to the expenditure. Maybe something more like the Kenrick store. Not so lavish, not so expensive. Increase your profitability, reduce your debt. Regarding the comment made this evening about the generous participation by the liquor stores with regard to the school district program, it's not a position, it's a program. So the liquor store is not funding an employee, they're funding a program. The program includes employees, but it includes other elements. If you're not aware, I recently encouraged the staff at the school district to bring forward the results of the recent survey that was completed in 2010. First time the survey has been completed since 2007. And it would indicate certain parameters, certain issues that continue to challenge the district, the community, the help that you provide. But nevertheless, there are certain challenges that are continuing to be dealt with regard to students and the use of substances. Finally, I never thought I'd see the day that a neighboring community would start surpassing us in economic development. And personally, I'm very concerned about that, not only on behalf of the citizenry, but on behalf of all other entities of government, certainly not limited to our school district. That neighboring community is just surpassing us in employment, in commercial retail, in quality restaurants, and we're sitting idly by, at least from my vantage point, and we really need to pick up the pace and become aggressive, like we did in 1989 when Air Lake Industrial Park was in foreclosure. The entire park was. We had to pull it out of that situation, and we were successful in that, and we really had an upswing following that, a resurgence, if you will. And then there was home furniture, Gander Mountain, and I could go on and on. The most successful Fleet Farm, everyone's hardware store. We need to get back into that cycle and be competitive with our neighboring community. We surpassed them, and they are now surpassing us. There's no room for that if we want to have a resurgence in employment, a resurgence in our values of our businesses. I'm talking about taxable value in our homes. It's very, very important. Really debated stepping forward tonight. I just want to say to each one of you as our elected officials, I know you're working hard. We need unity. I think we lack unity. And it's okay that everybody has a level of individual opinions, but our city administrator, our top staff people. We have, without a doubt, some of the best staff people. Steve Michaud, Dennis Feller, Keith Nelson, to name three. They're just the best. But if we don't have unity, we're not going to be the community that we were and the community that we have the potential of being. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I said thank you, sir. Does anyone else like to address the council? I've said in the last couple of meetings, unity may not mean uniformity. Councilmember Swecker.
Just to understand, I guess, the rules of procedure, I love that the citizens are coming forward and commenting. Three top issues that we've had, and the biggest items that we've had have been municipal liquor, senior center, and the sale of the old PD. We've heard all three of those items tonight, the newest one being competitive growth. How do we, and I think it's wonderful that citizens are coming forward to comment, how do we respond to those comments? Given that we have a wonderful venue here, but how do we respond, and how do you suggest we respond? Because there are things that I would like to respond to, but I don't want to do it as an individual council member, or maybe I do. There are items that are comments that were made that are almost accurate, but not quite, and just need to be clarified, such as where Costco is looking to develop, and I think that information is important to our residents, but I guess I want to get a better understanding as the residents are coming forward and asking us very good, very pertinent questions in our citizens' comments forum. How do we respond to them?
I find it educational for us as a council. We can take it to our work session. We can ask staff to respond to us.
But how do we get back to our residents? I mean, how do we let them know? This is great dialogue, and granted, I don't think a debate is really the way to go, but I think that there were some very pertinent points.
Councilmember LeBeau, did you have a comment?
I just said, what about the messages in the paper?
In articles, but keep in mind we're not writing the articles. We're not able to respond. It's the press. I'm honestly, and maybe to the council, I'm looking for ways that we can be responsive to some of these questions and issues, especially as they're brought forward, and making sure that they're timely. And I'll just leave it at that, since I'm just curious as to how you would want us to respond.
I found it all very helpful. I found it refreshing. Thank you for everyone who commented tonight.
If I may?
Yes.
There are a couple of items, points of clarification. And again, as we have residents coming forward that may need clarification. Somebody talked about the Costco looking at 185th Street. We've recently learned that the only place that they were looking was north of County Road 46. Again, this is why I want to make sure that we're clarifying and getting the information out there. Also, regarding the mining permit, has there been an EAW, an environmental assessment worksheet done on the mining property? Again, how do we respond?
That is a consent agenda. That is a regular agenda item tonight, and we will be talking about that. In terms of Costco, that is one of the questions or issues that's been raised that we are studying now, and the final story is not in. And as we do this study, as the community has asked, we will be letting that information be known.
And also with the sale of the former PD, just the history behind it and what's been done since 2008. I think that's important for our residents to understand as well. I just want to make sure we're
other
getting
comments
dialogue.
we will move on in our agenda. Agenda item 12, we are returning to a matter from our last regularly scheduled meeting. Unfinished business. A motion made to put the former police station up for sale. A motion made by Councilmember LeBeau. Would you like to begin with any comments?
Well, I would. I would first like to say that on the behalf of the senior citizens that are either here or are not here, this was certainly no intent to undermine your group to be able to do a study or to move forward. And I appreciate a comment made by a citizen here that, I wear more than one hat. I'm assuming you're speaking to the fact that I said in my campaign I'm running